Hey everybody, I'm really excited to make my big announcement that you have all been patiently waiting for. Um, I it's a lot, and I'm excited, I'm nervous, I'm driven, and I'm pumped to make this announcement. 2020 has been a really hard year for everyone and continues to present us with new challenges, eye-opening moments from the pandemic to Black Lives Matter to politics to the state of the environment, just everything. And it's just been a lot, and it's been overwhelming for people. It's been motivating for some people. It's been activating in terms of social activism for a lot of people, and I am no different. There have been extreme highs and lows over the last few months, some on the global level, some on our local level, and some on a very personal level that I have not really disclosed publicly. And just, I want you to bear with me while I lay out my big plan and my news, and I want you to fully understand why I'm doing this and how I'm going to do this. On August 9th of 2021, yes, a year from now, I will be beginning a journey driving me and my 4 dogs, yes, all 4, across the country to Albuquerque, New Mexico to visit my parents. And from there, I'll be dropping Gavin off to stay with them if thankfully he is still with us at that time. And Max, Percy, Dakota, and I will be driving to Denver, Colorado, where we're going to begin what I hope is the journey of a lifetime. I will be planning on hiking the Colorado Trail with my 3 dogs, which is a total of 486 miles solo from Denver to Durango. I've been inspired to do this by a really close friend of mine, Lauren Jones, who I have known since elementary school, who also recently completed the trail on her personal journey of healing and hope and awareness over a lot of things that she's been dealing with, but also a strong mission that both her and I feel incredibly empowered to fight every day, which is suicide awareness. And September is actually Suicide Awareness Month, so this kind of comes at a good time. So this is not just a long hike for me. Many of you may not know, but I'm an avid hiker and backpacker. I grew up doing all kinds of crazy adventure things with my family, from whitewater rafting, rock climbing, kayaking, canoeing, camping, traveling all over the United States. And I'm an avid traveler who's traveled to several countries. And I lived in backpacks through Europe for 2 years after graduating from college. So this is not something that is necessarily new to me or anything of that nature, but is the biggest backpacking and hiking undertaking that I have ever done. So, especially now since I'm kind of classified as semi-able-bodied. So why am I walking, and what is the purpose of me doing this, and how does this incorporate my business? First of all, my business is a platform for this because I strive really hard to come from an ethical position and also a really strong social justice and equality and inclusive platform. I'm a retired social worker, psychologist. I may not be doing that as actively as I was before, but you cannot take that out of me. It was my career for over 20 years, and social justice and activism is something that is built into my DNA and always has been. I'll be hiking this trail as a fundraiser to bring awareness to some of the issues that are really close to my heart. Many of you know that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I also suffer from PTSD, anxiety, and other mental health things, and I still do a lot of public speaking on those issues and feel strongly about advocating for awareness of those issues, but also the care for those issues. My overarching focus is also to bring awareness of the growing racial and economic divide between access to care from low income at-risk populations, including Blacks and minorities, in access to physical and mental health care. And the divide is huge. I worked in North Philadelphia and some of the poorest areas of Philadelphia for over 20 years. As a social worker, as a therapist, as a medical social worker, really striving hard to bridge that gap and to bring access to care to those communities because they're lacking significantly. So I will be setting up a fundraiser, and I'm still trying to figure out the exact platform I want to use, and the funds from that fundraiser will be divided between three very important organizations to me, which is the Ehlers-Danlos Society, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. The Ehlers-Danlos Society works really hard to bring awareness, programming, funding, and support for those who suffer from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, likewise, does an incredible job at bringing around awareness, prevention, programming, support to all communities, and totally inclusive to end suicide and to prevent suicide. The Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation is a Black nonprofit that is now at a national level, but was started in DC. And its interest and mission is focused on mental health advocacy programs and scholarships for those Black men and women interested in pursuing careers in mental health and becoming culturally competent mental health providers in Black communities to fight stigma, treat mental illness, and bring about change in a trauma-informed way to Black communities, making them the most culturally competent therapists, and bringing access to care to low-income, at-risk communities. It will also be the beginning of something I wanted to do for a long time. Several of you have met some of my interns. However, I want to develop a more comprehensive, specific internship that will be a teen summer internship targeting teens in low-income, at-risk communities that I will hope will start in the year 2021. The summer internship will be designed to allow teens to work together to not only be exposed to working and training with dogs, but also the rescuing community, as well as working to connect some internship hours at local rescues or sanctuaries. The internship will be designed to encourage teens in their developing, organizing, and implementing of their final project, a week-long hiking and camping trip in the summer to raise funds for a nonprofit related to community engagement, social justice, empowerment, leadership, and development for low-income, at-risk, and Black communities of their choice, not of my choice, of their choice, so that they're able to identify needs in their own community and create something that will help benefit their own community through this internship. It's going to offer them not only a hands-on experience with animals and nature, but operational work in terms of business, teamwork, communication, long-term and short-term planning skills, as well as working to build up programs they care about in their own communities. It is my hope this summer internship will also be something that they can use to further their own education in high school and or applications for college. I will be coordinating with nonprofits already in these communities, especially those targeting curriculum related to STEM, to select teens for this internship program. So it'll be competitive. There will be a selection process, but it will be also a lot of feedback given by other community leaders and people in the community that see teens that have a great deal of potential and may not have access to traditional internships, again, because of the economic and racial divide in and systemic racism in education, and the access they have to experiences that would then help build up their platform for getting into colleges of their choice and pursuing higher level education. So not everyone is really familiar with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome because it's also a rare disorder. It is a degenerative disorder that affects the joints, heart, GI tract, can create nerve damage, chronic pain, muscle and joint pain, mobility issues, and can vastly impact overall functioning. It is genetic, it's predominantly among females, and there is no cure. It is a degenerative disorder that will get worse over time. I have EDS and am already considered semi-able-bodied, and as many of you know, already use a wheelchair part-time to manage some of my daily needs, from chronic pain to my heart condition. Some people who have it, there's 13 subcategories, types of EDS, and they range from just hypermobility, so people that can do really hypermobile joint things, to people who have very severe impacts on all their internal organs, their heart, and just like I said, high level of functioning. I have already lost 4 friends due to complications from EDS. You don't necessarily die from EDS, you die from complications of EDS and how EDS affects your body and your systems. And I walk for them and to bring awareness to this disorder that is often misdiagnosed as so many other things, as a result of which results in years and years of pain, misdiagnosis, mismedications, and patients basically not getting the appropriate level of care. So then if you're in a low income or at-risk community, you even accessing appropriate care that would even get you the appropriate diagnosis already is almost 50% less. And as far as I'm concerned, that's just not acceptable. In addition, a lot of the adaptive needs for people with EDS are not covered by insurance. So my wheelchair is not covered by insurance. My service dog is not covered by insurance. People's attendant care, people that come into the home and help people with EDS with their daily functioning, is not always covered by insurance, or the number of hours they need is not covered by insurance. And most of the time, the strict rules for qualification to get the level of care that you need, or the services that you need, or transportation that you need to medical appointments is so strict that then you cannot get access to those services and therefore can't get quality access to care. Again, if you're in a low income or at-risk community, then your access to that is again drastically affected, and your ability to get to hospitals that are often dictated by your zip code or dictated by your insurance is not accessible to you. And again, you end up struggling 10 times over and even dying from complications that could be treatable or could be managed, so you could have a higher quality of life, have a job, have relationships, go to school. Any of those things are strongly at risk for people in low-income, at-risk communities who don't have access to this level of care. PTSD, which I also suffer from personal trauma experience and also vicarious trauma through my years as a trauma therapist, is something that affects both lay people and military people equally. In this country, there's over 13 million people with PTSD at any given time. About 7 or 8 out of every 100 people have PTSD diagnosis. This does not include people that have experienced trauma and have the symptoms of PTSD but have not gotten a diagnosis. In the United States, approximately 8.7 adults, 1 out of every 13 people in this country, will develop PTSD in their lifetime. An estimated 1 out of 9 women will get PTSD at some time in their lives. Women are about twice as likely to get PTSD than men. Right now, on-call crisis intervention specialists that I do, our biggest population that we're working with right now are Black communities and the nonstop ongoing racial violence and trauma that is leading to more and more PTSD in Black communities. Sadly, again, their access to mental health care in their communities, the stigma about mental health care, PTSD, and trauma creates a very difficult system for them to access treatment. In addition, having culturally competent therapists, especially therapists that are from their communities, is very limited. And that is another reason why I'm supporting the Boris Lawrence and Henson Foundation, because they are working very hard to create those scholarships for Black men and women who want to go into careers in counseling, to help create culturally competent areas and counseling areas in these Black communities. I used to do a lot of work with DHS and subsidiaries of DHS, and Youth Child Protection Services in this country sees approximately 3 million reports every year. This involves 5.5 million children on average in the United States, where calls are being called to DHS to report potential abuse, neglect, or violence towards children. Studies have shown that almost 43% of girls and boys go through at least one trauma. Of those children and teens who have had trauma, approximately 13% of girls and 6% of boys will go on to develop PTSD. Rates of PTSD are higher for certain types of trauma. Of the 3 million cases reported, there is proof of abuse in about 30% of those cases. Another area in terms of PTSD that all of you know is very close to my heart is veterans with PTSD. They come back from deployment and they have huge trouble adjusting and reintegration back into their communities and as a result of the trauma that they've seen abroad. Veterans with PTSD in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, about 11 to 20 out of every 100 veterans who served has PTSD in a given year. And again, this is people who have actually sought out services and have been diagnosed with PTSD. The Gulf War, Desert Storm, about every 12 out of every 100 Gulf War veterans have PTSD in a given year. And the Vietnam War, about 15 out of every 100 Vietnam veterans were currently diagnosed with PTSD. At the time of the most recent study, which was only done in 1980, there have not been a comprehensive study done since then, which I also feel is just creates such a gap in services. However, the National Vietnam Veterans Readjustment Study that they did do estimated about 30 out of every 100 Vietnam veterans have PTSD in their lifetime. So suicide and PTSD, depression, and all other mental illnesses are strongly intertwined. The age-adjusted suicide rate in 2018 was 14.2 per 100,000 individuals. The rate of suicide is highest in middle-aged white men. In 2018, men died by suicide 3.5 times more than women, with gun violence being the number one tool used to commit suicide. On average, there are 132 suicides per day in the United States. In 2018, firearms, like I said, accounted for 50.57% of those suicides, ending in fatality. Every 11 minutes, a U.S. veteran commits suicide in our country. That's how high the rate of suicide is among veterans, and their access to care is not always guaranteed. Teen suicides, which my friend Lauren and I are strongly involved in preventing teen suicides due to some losses that we experience as teens, but also as adults with clients that we have worked with, family members, and friends. In 2017, there were 47% more suicides in people aged 15 to 19 in the year 2000. With more than 6,200 suicides among people aged 15 to 24, suicide ranked the second leading cause of death for people in that age group in 2017. Among the disabled community, there's actually not a huge study ever done on suicide among the disabled. What happens is they do suicides related to mental health that is tied to being disabled. For example, although the presence of having activities of daily living, like being able to get dressed, mobility, feeding yourself, cleaning your house, those are all activities of daily living, it was associated with a fourfold increase of attempted suicide in the past year. And those with more than 3 types of impairments in activities of daily living resulted in almost an 8-fold increase in suicide. And a lot of that has to do with being able to fill out paperwork, and that helps you get the services that you need. The frustration of not being able to do that leads a lot of people to severe depression. Also, the systemic nature of discrimination, even in being able to access care as a disabled person, leads to suicide, and the isolation of being disabled leads to suicide. Again, the overarching reason that I'm doing this hike of 486 miles is that my friend Lauren's message that resonated the most with me after her completing her hike is that we can do hard things, but we cannot do them isolated. We cannot do them alone. And it takes a village to get the help that we need. It takes a village to help save communities. It takes a village to help take care of veterans, teens, disabled, and able-bodied folk. We need that village and that human compassion, more research, better healthcare, and the hugest discrepancy that I fight to change is the racial and economic divide in access to healthcare for Black and African American communities, Hispanics, the LGBT community, and the divide and choices we have that will only go for medical care, or will only choose to go for medical care because it's covered under our insurance, or our jobs do not actually support us getting mental health care. So you can take paid time off to get access to medical care, but you are forced to take FMLA or unpaid leave time to deal with a mental health issue. So there's no mental health parity in this country, and that is also a major, major barrier to people accessing care when they need it, especially in stressful jobs that have a high rate of suicide within the jobs, such as first responders, medical professionals, social workers, therapists, people designed to help other people don't have access to mental health care. It's not covered under their insurance, or they're not supported in acknowledging and breaking down the stigma to say, yes, this happens to us. We get vicarious trauma. We have mental health issues and we need help. And these jobs don't allow for that. You need to push through it, and you need to keep it going no matter what the cost. And that is not okay. It's not safe, and it needs to change. Blacks and Hispanics and some Asian populations, when compared with whites, appear to have lower levels of health insurance coverage, with Hispanics facing greater barriers to health insurance than any other group. However, Hispanics and Asians are considerably heterogeneous in insurance coverage. Uninsured rates are much higher for Mexicans, Central Americans than for Puerto Ricans. Among Asians, Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, and Indians, who have uninsured rates that are comparable to or lower than those of whites, with Koreans and Vietnamese having higher uninsured rates than blacks. Blacks and Hispanics are less likely to have insurance coverage from private employers, whether directly or through a spouse, and more likely to have public health insurance coverage than whites. Blacks and Hispanics are also more likely than whites to receive care in a non-optimal organizational setting, such as an emergency room, and to lack of community access to healthcare. Analysis of racial and ethnic differences in access to and the use of health services between 1977 and 1996 showed that Black-white gap has not narrowed over time, and the gap between Hispanics and whites has widened. Moreover, and even more importantly, this study found that even if income and health insurance coverage were equal, racial and ethnic differences in having a usual source of care and in receiving ambulatory care in the previous year would not have been eliminated, because 1/2 to 3/4 of the differences of these indicators were not accounted for by income and insurance coverage. That's why I'm walking. I want to bring more focus and spotlight to these prevalent issues, not only in our own country, but globally. I also want to be part of systemic and sustainable change in the massive racial and economic divides in our healthcare and mental health care in this country. Systemic racism and economic divides in healthcare and access to healthcare need to continuously be addressed and be eliminated. That being said, I'm pleased to announce that as of September 1st, 2020, I was cleared by my team of doctors and supports to start training for this hike, condition for it, and prepare. My team is made up of my Penn doctors, including my primary doctor who's coordinating my team, my orthopedic surgeon, my 2 EDS physical therapists, my neurologist, my nutritionist, my therapist, my psychiatrist, and a personal trainer from West Philadelphia, who are all on board on the same page and advocating for change as well and supporting me in this mission. I'm not the only one with the team. My 3 dogs have been evaluated by their vet, Dr. Rebecca at Philadelphia Animal Hospital. And they also have been cleared to start conditioning and train for this trip. Their hips have been checked, their spine, knees, and their body weight, and everything have been cleared. And they will be getting more periodical evaluations throughout the year than just their normal wellness visit to make sure that we're on track Dr. Rebecca has also graciously offered to contribute to my fundraiser, which I am so, so grateful for. They have been also set up with a consultation at the World Animal Gym, which is a conditioning gym and a physical therapy center, which is also where Percy went for her PT. They will be working an intensive program that will be in their brick and mortar site, but also an at-home program that will allow them to be in the best physical shape and ensuring joint stability, conditioning, core work, and being able to hike 486 miles. Max will also be learning additional backpacking and service dog tasks for this hike. My trainer in the group, Tamar, has graciously offered to help me with this process and training Max to do additional service dog work that I'm going to need him to do to make sure that I'm safe and that we're all safe as a group. I have my interns to thank, Spike and Vic, who are going to be helping me. Sydney Wilson has offered during her time off from school to be helping me as well. This is going to take a village. I'm going to need your support. I'm going to need your help, not just for the fundraiser, but just to keep me motivated and keep me focused. And I'm sure there's going to be a great deal of moments of trials and tribulations and frustrations and up and downs on this journey. This is a huge undertaking, so this is why I'm taking the time of over a year to work on this process and to plan this out for the safety of both myself and my dogs. And I'm going in with the open-headed mind that I also may have an injury halfway through, or something may happen to one of my dogs that will not make this possible, or that I may not be able to complete the 486 miles. And if that is the case, we will just do the best we can, and the fundraiser will continue, and I will donate the money equally among the 3 organizations that I have identified. My schedule will be changing just a little bit, but not significantly, in order to have time for me to work with my dogs. I'll also be working with another client who is doing admin work as a work swap with me to help me develop my internship for the teens that I'm doing for the year. And making this as comprehensive as possible and helping me coordinate with other nonprofits in the community. So that's my big announcement. I'm walking 486 miles to raise, hopefully my goal will be $2,000 to $3,000 for these 3 organizations, and to bring awareness to these major issues that I've outlined today. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope that you'll support me on my journey. Thanks so much. Bye.